Hi, good morning, everybody. Thanks for having me. Excited to chat today. My name's Genesis. Most people call me GW. I am currently at Gemini Trust Company, working on diversity, equity, inclusion. Definitely very passionate about the crypto space and really just trying to work from the inside out on bringing more equity to the space in general. So yeah, excited to be here and to be a part of this conference.
I'm Justin Redrick, known as the Bitcoin Vegan on Instagram and Twitter, the author of From Bars to Bitcoin and a member of the Black Bitcoin Billionaires. And my message for years has been just educating the masses about Bitcoin as as we grow along. And as of recently, been pushing that message also into returning citizens and folks who are even currently incarcerated. So I'm glad to be here. Thank you for the panel, Ms. Deidre. And I love Black people. And now I'm ready to get into the discussion.
Hello, everybody. I'm Naja Roberts, the founder of Crypto Blockchain Plug, which is now I'm actually the only brick and mortar cryptocurrency exchange in the US. And I am also the founder of Crypto Kids Camp, which is an innovative camp where we say we go beast mode on breaks. And we'll talk about that, I guess, a little bit later. And just really big on educating the community in a holistic way. So just kind of meeting the community where they are, making sure that they get what they need. And I'm super excited about being here. So thank you all for having me today.
Hi, how are you? My name is Tyreen Wright, Dr. Tyreen Wright. I'm actually a part of I Love Black People, but I am an educator. I teach for the City University of New York. And just my entry point into this conversation is the historical and cultural context in which Black people can use Bitcoin and blockchain technology to circumvent the systems that have been oppressive and exploitive to our communities economically. And I teach for I Love Black. I teach the ideological training course on Pan-Africanism and Pan-African history and Pan-African organizing.
What's one way in which you think that Bitcoin is disrupting your respective ecosystem? What's one thing that you can put forward to share with someone saying, because of Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies or blockchains, this is happening that hasn't happened before?
I mean, essentially, because of Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency blockchain, we now have access to uncontrolled wealth, and we have the access to spread that knowledge of wealth amongst our own people in any form or fashion we like, and we can also tell that it works. So one of the very general things I've noticed very easy on is just being able to have access to have currency like this, have access to build, yourself or build, your career around. Just the access alone and having an opportunity to even participate, is very key because we've never had our foot in the door. And when we have our foot in the door, we can now start making better moves for ourselves further down the line.
I totally agree. It's all about access. And I think for the first time in history, we have and I won't call it, it's literally a new monetary system. It is a new way for folks to just be able to be in control. And I'm just so super excited about those individuals that are starting to listen and are beginning to understand how Bitcoin how it works, what it was meant to do, and how it could eventually really close the wealth gap that exists, that we've never been able to solve. We haven't been able to solve it in our current system. And so I'm just really excited about the possibilities.
Yeah, happy to dive in. I think one of the interesting things that I observe is just thinking more broadly about the crypto space. There's been recent data showing really the enthusiasm of Black investors wanting to be involved in crypto. I think right now, looking at America, I think there's somewhere around 14 or 15% of Americans are invested in cryptocurrency. And of that, actually of the investors that are invested in cryptocurrency, 30% of general investors, so 30% of Black investors actually own cryptocurrency, compared with investors who have portfolios generally across fiat and crypto. I think that's just about 17%. So when you look at the proportions, I think it's exciting, the enthusiasm around adopting crypto for all the reasons of kind of thinking about some of the disenfranchisement from traditional financial wealth that has been in this country. It can definitely be used as a tool appeal. And I think that is like something that's really important for exchanges to like really think about, is how to educate, how to appeal to Black investors who are really enthusiastic about being on the front lines of adopting Bitcoin and cryptocurrency as the new fiat and being able to build some of that wealth.
Dr. Wright, have you seen any conversations in the CUNY system about crypto or blockchain? I know in New York, that's not the most Bitcoin friendly environment, but in terms of dealing with the students or any buzz around the campus, have you seen anything change within the last year?
Actually not. And that's very interesting because, of course, the prior to the pandemic, New York can be seen as an economic center. But I think what's happening is that it's so rogue in many ways, right? It is a space where Black people can make money without subject to some of the regulations or the, traditional methods. And so, no, you don't hear a lot of conversation about it. I have some data that I wanted to discuss in a second. I'm trying to pull it up, but it just shows how it is an area in which Black people can accumulate wealth, make wealth very quickly, high risk to a certain extent. And I think it's probably shunned a little bit. Like it's very risky, sure you want to do that, but it's a way that a lot of people feel like they can make up for the lack of wealth in the Black community. So no, I wish I could say yes, in those educational spaces, there's encouragement. I see encouragement for that outside of those traditional, academia is a very traditional space. And while it's supposed to be universal thinking, it is really the center of very traditional values that get communicated there. All right. So the people can say that they're, progressive. I won't say liberal, but progressive. But really what gets communicated by most educators is not exactly very progressive. Okay, they pass on the status quo. I don't want to go off on a tangent, but just side note, that's part of the reason why we can't talk about critical race theory and things like that. I mean, like in the truest sense, right? So if we can talk about the historical facts as to why Black people are economically behind, why the accumulation of wealth in the Black community has such a distance from that of white communities and white people, then certainly they're not going to talk about how you can recover from that in that space. Do you understand? Especially when it allows you to sort of go off of the beaten path. That's not really endorsed, in my opinion. I've not seen that. I've not seen that in a broad way in academia, and not even in a big public institution like the one I teach for.
Naja, you've actually hit the road with Hill Harper. You've been from Brooklyn to Oakland. Were there any differences when you guys were on the street during the pandemic and talking to the Black community throughout the country? Were there any differences that you noticed in terms of people understanding what was happening within the Bitcoin space? Were you surprised by anything when you hit the road, because you really were in people's faces during the pandemic?
You know what, Deidre, the surprising thing for me was that no matter what city I was in, it was exactly the same. It was the exact same mindset as it related to the types of vehicles and things people were purchasing during the pandemic, as it related to it is like a universal, I don't know. It actually, I was shocked because I've been a lot of places, but I think not consecutively like that. To just see that every single city, when I woke up, I saw the exact same behaviors, exact same mindsets, just everything was exactly the same. And so we've got some work to do, some major work to do. And I know that we all know that, but we've really got to get meticulously involved in our mindset. And man, this is no different from anything else that we've got to overcome in our community, just helping people understand how critically important money is. But first, we got to help people understand what money is, how it works, where it came from, like the basics in order for them to even understand where we are today and what we need to do. And so that's what I figured that out early on, maybe like my third city. I was like, wait a minute, I need to kind of shift gears here and bring folks into why we're here and what this means. And so once I got that kind of going, I was able to see it. But man, I'm telling you, from the Harleys to the I can just go into in depth to what our community has been doing, especially during this pandemic, while everybody thinks they're pandemic
Well,
rich. But
that data is important because I'm surprised. I would think that you would have encountered definitely, regional differences, exposure differences, attitudes that are different. So it's a bit disheartening, but at least it gives you a framework of where we need to go. Justin, I know that you wrote and published a book. If your book is out, based on your perspective and your experience, but just even with your background of knowing the needs of those of us who have ever been incarcerated or have family members who are incarcerated, is there any disruption, any way that we can aid people in terms of that are in those circumstances, their extended family that are maybe on the outside? What is your take on that? And definitely tell us about your book as well.
And so you're asking me to give you my take on disrupting, or either speaking towards the status quo or disrupting the status quo, dealing with.
Well, what I'm asking is, in terms of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, anything that we could do that will push back against the prison industrial complex, improve people's lives, whether they're currently incarcerated or at least their families' lives, anything that you're noticing that this new movement can alleviate, if we can't outright solve the broader issue, which is really more of a protest type mode and trying to get changes in terms of our incarceration practices, but anything that we can utilize now to even help the families of the incarcerated, just something real respectful. But definitely talk about your book, because I think I don't know, aside from mentioning and retweeting a tweet, I don't really know what your book is about, and I was like, oh my goodness, he's got a book. But definitely share your thoughts on that.
All right, so on the first question of what you asked, a lot of it just comes with education and the speed of which you educate people about the simple ways of how Bitcoin can get used. So like from bars of Bitcoin on Black Bitcoin billionaires, or just Black Bitcoin billionaires in general. I mean, that's the disruption. That's the disruption right there. We don't, and of course, what we've all been doing with I Love Black People. So the disruption has already started. It's just about getting that message to different demographics within our community. And, the speed of which you apply that. Like sometimes I hear people say, well, they don't know if Bitcoin can close the wealth gap. The only way you can really close the wealth gap, you increase the speed of which you educate people. Because if everyone's money isn't going to move into Bitcoin at the same time, then we got to move our people with a different sense of urgency. Like, hey, still trillions of dollars out there on the table that companies and countries aren't buying with Bitcoin. So we need to be there, but they need to know the importance of that. So then within that disruption, it all comes down to education. For instance, there was a guy, Ms. Naja had actually recommended this guy to come in from Bars of Bitcoin. And he was actually in prison on Clubhouse. And he said, hey, how can I get your course? Like, man, just take the email. And then, give me your email. And I sent him the course. And then I said, I want you to send this to as many people as you know that are incarcerated. Whoever has an email, and you need to do it quickly because I know you can't have a phone forever. But that's how you do it. It's almost to a way of you're using the technology to hijack what's happening. And so it's something like Clubhouse, and you have folks who have access to phones. You just have to, I feel you got to spread that message across many mediums as much as possible, no matter where they are, and hope for the best, because you always have someone out there who can pick up on something to then be the next community leader to then do it to someone else. So within that, we do educate, but it's like how, and at what pace, then like what are you focused on to make the educational process better so it can stick? Because we got to move through a lot of different things. Like Ms. Naja said, to me, we really, with this wealth movement, we're now just coming out of slavery, the next form of slavery. And with Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, well, just Bitcoin, let's be honest. With Bitcoin, that's where, that type of freedom comes. I didn't recognize freedom, or I didn't recognize how embedded I was into a dangerous cycle until I did come home from prison. And that's something I talk about in the book. So the book is me sharing the story from basically homelessness in high school, like losing our house in the housing market crash, to going to college, dropping out of college, going to prison, coming home from prison, hopping under entrepreneurship, and just ultimately ending up in Bitcoin. But that story of what had to take place, the mindset adjustment that Ms. Naja talks about, that type of stuff is in there. You know, you have to also have people who can speak towards these mindset paradigm shifts, because, you know, just saying, hey, you got to do this, like, okay, I'll go do that, but now what? Like, you got to speak to someone as to why, you know, it's hard for you to understand dollar costs $10 a day, or why it's hard for you to understand, you know, I've been doing good my whole life, but you actually haven't, because you've just been, you know, buying and saving money, but you haven't looked at what's going to stop that process. You know, once people see that they're in a cycle, a dangerous cycle that's generations long, you start trying to find ways to break the cycle. And so that's why I go into the book. And the book is also about me sharing, you know, my downfalls through me building up a process, so people can see, like, you know, no one said this was going to be easy, but it is possible. And any problem you have that you share, I feel like you are giving someone else gems to succeed. So those are the qualities of the book. Those are that's what the book is about. And it's just a big highlight of different learning experiences, even from the very first the Black Blockchain Summit we had in 2018. You know, I tell those stories. I tell what those learning experiences was like, because someone who feels like they don't have hope, we don't feel like we have hope as a people. You know, you see all the big billionaires talk about Bitcoin, but this is what it is. You hear people say how Bitcoin can change lives and help people economically, but you only see billionaires talk about it. So everyone can actually say how Bitcoin can change lives. Well, my book actually is going to tell you how that happened, and how, if you're looking for yourself to change your life with someone else, how that process can start taking place.
Thank you, Justin. Genesis, you're at Gemini Exchange. How I know Gemini has a learn area for people who are not familiar with the space, but in terms of your own professional development, can you share, how do you keep, is there ways in which Gemini encourages further learning and development, or there's certain things that are happening with your peer group that you, like, people outside can do this on their own and figure out their space in the sector? But definitely talk about, you know, Gemini's areas, but also, you know, your own professional development, because your own professional development can actually impact someone else that has not even considered the kind of insider information that you may be experiencing at Gemini.
Yeah, so just like thinking about that more broadly, one of the things that I very much agree with is education as a big component of that. And I think, like, we, you know, in the ways that we try to connect with potential new investors, is really providing those inroads, easy ways for people to kind of understand the technology, understand some of the safety, you know, because again, we talked a lot about risk and how people feel about diving into crypto, particularly Bitcoin. You know, I think a lot of the news you hear tends to be about the volatility. And so more of the education is about, like, really looking at how, you know, how people can kind of build that into that wealth. So an example of that, right, is like we have Cryptopedia that really kind of breaks it down, like, very simply, like, what are these concepts? And really it's from people who we ask to kind of really who are really kind of a part of building this technology, to like really talk about it in an educational way. But even thinking about, like, simple ways to educate people as to how they can take an on-ramp to crypto is really important. So for example, I used to have conversations with people who are like, I don't have $50,000 to invest in one Bitcoin. And it's even telling people, hey, you know what? You can actually invest in it incrementally. You can buy a portion of Bitcoin or any altcoin, and you can put $5 into it. And so it's really just like kind of educating people as to how they can do it practically. And I think that's a big part of it, is there's a lot of interest in crypto. It's really taking kind of that interest and helping people understand how it can be practically used. That's going to be leading to that broader adoption. And so I think we like to hope to do that with education. I think one of the things that we also think is very important is to elevate voices in the space, particularly Black voices who are doing the work to educate the Black community about how they can use crypto to you know, to really kind of try to build that wealth. So that's something that's really important to us, is creating those partnerships. You know, we recently were working with this amazing company, Crypto Tutors, who are very much invested in that. And so we're always looking for those partnerships to elevate those voices. And definitely we have work to do internally, right, to build that, to make sure that we're building that. That's also an important part of my mission, is making sure as we build the company that we need to do the job of like building, like companies like Gemini need to do a job of building exchanges and building building teams that actually reflect the people that need to be empowered. So I always say, one of the things I want people to do, particularly Black people who are interested in crypto, is like try to come disrupt the space by helping us build these companies as well. I think like it's amazing. I think it's amazing that we are creating interesting spaces for people to be educated. But I also sometimes believe like it's really hard to put the burden only on people to create these spaces of wealth. And so companies like mine and other companies that are in the space and have this influence, I think they should relieve some of that burden by really growing within and making sure that diversity is important and leveraging that to find better ways to enable and empower all kinds of people to be able to use crypto to their advantage. So that's something that I think about. And when I think about professional development, it's like there's a myth that you have to like be very knowledgeable about crypto to kind of work in crypto. And it's not true. I think a lot of it is education. Some people are self-taught about and have dived into all of like the white papers and really learned about it. But we want to make that easier for people with stuff like Cryptopedia and with partnering with people who are doing amazing work educating the community. And so, yeah, I think like one of the most important ways to do that is like obviously building these inroads from my company is making sure that we are bringing Black people to the company who actually understand kind of from a community perspective what's needed and can help inform like how we build products, how we reach out to the Black community, how we make people feel safe and to invest in crypto and really just like empower them to adopt it from not only a wealth building sense, but also a practical sense. So that's something that I'm very passionate about. And, you know, it's definitely hard work and there's a lot of work to be done. If there wasn't, I wouldn't have a job, but I'm definitely very passionate about it. And I think it's like something that's really important to us.
Also, with that, we have to close out this way too short conference, this Baraza. We'd like to definitely like to thank Justin, Naja, Dr. Wright, and Genesis from Gemini. You know, it was way too short. You all of powerhouses in your respective spheres. I respect a lot of you a lot. I had never actually met Genesis, but I had heard a lot about her even over a year ago. And Dr. Wright, I heard about you from Sinclair off and on through telephone conversations. So it's finally good to put a face to the name. Naj, you've been following us since the very beginning. We're crypto kids. Justin, one of the first people I ever met at Black Blockchain Summit. So everybody keep pushing. I think we've all agreed that education is one of the ways that Bitcoin is disrupting this world. Thank you.